This is Jed MacKay, and you're listening to Into the Night, the Moonlight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moonlight podcast. This is episode 241, and you're with your High Priest of KHONSHU, Ray. Hello. And we've got a special one for you for this idle chat. It is our chorus of Ordination. It's our special chat with Jed MacKay, returning onto the show to I guess, join in with our discussions of how, I guess, the current series of Moonlight is going. We're 3 issues in, and we're just very fortunate to have Jed back to be able to chat about all the things that he's revealed and how the story has unfolded so far. So before we get into any of that, of course, a big thank you to our gracious patroonies, those listed as co-producers and executive producers on each of the episodes. So a big thanks to the likes of Daniel, Drew, Justin, Derek, Kyle, Wayne, Jordan, Josh, James, Anthony, and Michael. And we have our top sponsors. First off, Dreamland Comics from Illinois, the superhero superstore. Also Fringe Night by Daniel, doing an original indie comic based on Erie, Pennsylvania's very own mysterious superhero. And finally, Drew Toonz, one of our top tier patroonies. He's got music produced and created both on SoundCloud and Lurk Music under the moniker Toonz, and on Bandcamp as Lurk Music. Definitely worth checking out. Right, so Lenny's, look, I'm not going to linger too much longer. I'm going to throw it to the chat. There's also a couple of loonies there who I introduced, so I'll leave that to the cockier pre-recorded Ray, who features in the chat with Jed, and the couple of loonies who I'm sure you will recognise. Anyway, loonies, enjoy this, and I'll catch you on the other side of this this chat. Alright, well, yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. Welcome to Into the Night, the Moonlight podcast, episode 241. On the other side of that break there, you heard some rambling Ray. I would just forget him. All the action is happening now in This Is Past Ray, because I'm doing this before I've actually recorded the other bit. I've got actually 2 cool loonies with us. Noel Looney Tunes. Tate, Noel, how are you going?
I'm good. I'm pretty cool.
Excellent. You are pretty cool. And Russell, Jack Russell.
Give me a keg of beer.
Moran, how are you, sir?
I'm good. We have Zinmu here with us too.
Excellent. So we have
a Testament T-shirt. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
And joining, as I'm sure you guys, listeners, would have seen on the tin, we have returning back Jed MacKay. So Jed, a big welcome back to the show. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about comic books, specifically our ill-fated friend Mark Spector.
Yes.
Ooh. I thought this was a Doctor Strange podcast.
If it is, I've got some bad news for you about Doctor Strange.
Oh, yes, actually, that's right. Well, I've got to tick off the list as well. Look, make Jed download Skype, so that's one. I've got that off. Now, opening up, Jed, with this chat. Basically, we had you on previously prior to the release of the series, and for all intents, I've got to say, well, within our community at least, it's going great guns. Like, thank you so much. It's been receiving largely positive, mainly all positive feedback from everyone within the ITH community, the Facebook group, on Twitter and on our fan page as well. So I'd just like to open up as well. I mean, do you keep a finger on the pulse with that? Do you kind of like check in? I know, sales and stuff, and the successes of that are released, but do you kind of like touch base with how it's going with readers and fans?
I mean, to a certain extent. Like I'll read any reviews that I get tagged in, for instance, mainly because I want to make sure that they're all right to retweet. I don't want to like retweet a review that says it's like, oh, this is a great story, but like the art was dog shit or something. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, for sure.
Or vice versa.
But do you read those reviews?
I mean, I read the ones I'm tagged in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, if I'm not tagged in something, I generally don't read it because more or less I just don't want my feelings to get hurt.
Right.
Very.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, it's largely just stuff that people will bring to my attention. I generally don't go, searching my name on Twitter or like searching for Moon Knight #3 or something, just because it's not something that I've been invited into. I'm not really that interested in getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is not really something you want to do as a creator. I think there needs to be a certain amount of division between fan spaces and sort of creator input there. So from what I've seen, people seem to like the book, but also I don't want to go digging too deep because then you start digging yourself a weird hole where you're kind of looking for someone to say something bad about you.
It seems like social media is really a double-edged sword for creators because, on one hand, you want to promote your book as much as possible, and you want to see that feedback. But then you have the trolls and the people that are just trying to be mean out there, and it's kind of it's an ebb and flow, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things that you just kind of have to find your own balance with as a creator. Like the way I approach it and the way the kind of rules I've set out for myself are going to be different than those that someone else has, and that's fine. Everyone's going to approach their social media in a different way. So for me, it's just more about finding an approach that works best for me in getting a sense of what temperature the water's at without driving myself totally bonkers with it. So I'll go on the comic book roundup and look at the ratings and kind of see how things are doing in general, and then if it's too low, I will disagree with it and have a bit of a sob. Yeah. I'm certainly not gonna go like, oh, you wrote a bad review about my book, you're wrong. Like look what this jerk is saying about this book that I wrote. It's just like it's hugely diminishing returns with that kind of stuff. It's better to just kind of stay above it and do the work. 'Cause, I mean, ultimately, none of that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's capitalism that has the largest voice in the room, I suppose.
I mean, realistically, yes. Like, because as far as I know, editors aren't reading these reviews.
You don't think Tom is digging through every single little tweet that's sent about Moon Knight?
Tom's got he's got anime intros from the 80s to retweet, and he's but so I mean, ultimately, if my work is if the editors are happy with it, if Marvel's happy with the way it's selling, and people who want to get in touch and they say, hey, I like this book a lot, I'm generally happy.
Mm-hmm.
My large concern is making a misstep, that would hurt for people in marginalized communities, and that's the kind of thing I need brought to my attention. Something that I do. As far as saying, I think Moon Knight should cut more people's faces off, I don't really care.
Yeah. Well, I have a question about that later too, actually. But obviously the sales are. I mean, I don't know. It was not a totally reputable website that had said it, but a lot of people followed said that you're outselling TMNT and the Distinguished Competitions version of Moon Knight.
Yeah.
So
DC's Moon Knight.
Excellent.
So that must feel pretty good.
It's
if those numbers are true, which I'm assuming they probably are.
They're probably true to a certain extent. I don't really know. But yeah, it's been selling very well. First issue went to third printing. Second and third both went to second printing.
Yeah, when is the third printing of the first issue come out?
That's a very good question. I have heard time keeping track when the first printings come out.
Yeah, exactly.
Subsequent printings, they just kind of come out. But I think number 3, part of that was fueled. I think there's a bit of a speculation as to that being Hunter's Moon's first appearance, when I think people were surprised / annoyed, and then he actually turned up in number 1 first. But
yeah, I've seen on eBay. Sorry, I'll just say there were some big prices I've seen on eBay for Hunter's Moon's first appearance, number 3. Any loony would kind of like go, oh, okay, well, anyway. But yeah, I mean, so you were talking about, not really paying too much attention with, I guess, the reactions from fans and stuff, which is good because, I mean, when we spoke last time, you had this idea of where you wanted to take Moon Knight, and to be fair, look, I guess any creator wouldn't want to be swayed too much by external influences. So, I mean, you've paved that way with the first 3 issues, and there are so many great new aspects now to Moon Knight, which has a lot of the Moon Knight fans kind of really latching onto and really excited about. Despite the fact, you could say as well that there's an absence of some of the, again, we spoke about this as well, an absence of some of the general, the regular support cast. So, I guess I'll open it up with Noel or Russell. I know you guys both had questions about Hunter's Moon. I mean, there are so many new things like that also about the Midnight Mission, the support cast for Moon Knight, stuff like this big bad guy. Also, we'll get to it. Maybe Russell talk about the sarcophagus. I mean, we're all there's a lot of speculations about that empty sarcophagus in the Mindscape from issue 2. So either of you guys, do you want to jump in with any question about Hunter's Moon, Russell?
Well, first off, I just want to say that I loved Hunter's Moon the minute I saw him. I'm a big villain guy. I kind of do a whole show about villains. So when the villain is immediately aesthetically pleasing, it's always a good start. But I was just wondering if you knew that Hunter's Moon has a kind of a unofficial theme song now.
I think someone brought that to my attention. It was a ghost track.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I haven't got around to listening to it yet, but I think that was on my list today while I was working. But yeah, it's nice it's a nice bit of synchronicity, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And with I guess the big thing with Hunter's Moon is this new aspect of there being 2 fists, which, why not? Of course, it makes kind of sense. Something that really has never been touched upon before as well. There are also harkbacks to, references to, say, the Fist of Khonshu. I mean, I love Hunter's Moon's aesthetic. He's got a lot of I call it the gold bling, similar to Moon Knight from Fist of Khonshu. By the way, Jed, loved your original sketch of Hunter's Moon.
I was just going to say, I almost prefer that.
Yeah, exactly. Sketch. Exactly.
That was that was rough. I was like, man, I was like, I'll do a little sketch to get my ideas across, and I was drawing it, a pen too. It's like, man, I remember being a lot better at this.
There was a big wager going on in the ITK Discord about whether Hunter's Moon was going to be a werewolf or not.
Yeah,
it's a valid guess. I mean, Khonshu had a whole crew of werewolves back in the age of Khonshu, so
yeah, that's true. That does prop up in some of the other listener questions, but also I guess the fact as well in issue 3 where we come up to where we are now, this I guess reveal that there's a legacy, a chorus of Ordination, which again kind of piqued a lot of interest with Hunter's Moon. He reveals to Moon Knight that he should have received this thing where you basically gain all the knowledge and skill from previous Moon Knights, and Hunter's Moon has it. But I really love the difference that you've made for Mark Spector, and the fact that he's kind of like your rough. He always is this rough outsider, and so he hasn't been given that. Khonshu's given him brain damage, as he calls it, and he fights like an animal. So I like that point of difference with Mark. Are there any ideas? I mean, now we've got the other Fist of Khonshu, we had the Age of Khonshu with Jason Aaron showing the legacy, and Bemis showing the legacy of Moonlight characters. Does that mean there's a legacy of a Fist of Khonshu, the other Fists of Khonshus as well?
I mean, it's something that maybe we'll get into a little more down the line. My sort of direction, when it came to that, is to try to create two characters who essentially have the same job, but approach it in a very different way and with very different tools. Mark Spector is a character who, maybe he didn't necessarily start out this way, but it's kind of what people know him best, is he's a guy who is, for one reason or another, not strictly related to mental illness or his DID, but he's a character who is kind of always on the back foot. He's, as we say, he's an outsider, and I really like the idea that even him being Moon Knight, there's something broken in that. But also with Mark Spector, his greatest strength isn't that, has superpowers or he has great training or anything like that. His whole thing is that he will always take the hit. Like, it doesn't matter what it'll do to him. In order to do what he has to do, he will take the hit. Whether that's, I think it was in the Houston run, Taskmaster said, like, I don't like fighting this guy because he doesn't dodge. He'd rather get hit. And that's something I found really interesting. And in the same respect, you have, Mark as a character who is trying to get his head together. He's trying to forge a new identity or find out, who he is. But he's trying to do that while at the same time engaging in a world of horrific violence and the psychic trauma that, puts him through. But again, he will always take the hit. Whereas Hunter's Moon is, he's much newer in this position as the Fist of Khonshu, but he's also given greater tools. So we have sort of, and again, he is, he's more orthodox follower of Khonshu, whereas Mark is, a reformed follower of Khonshu at this point in time. So, it's like, what's the saying? You got all the gear but no idea. Where Hunter's Moon is, on paper, much better equipped to, win in a scuff than Mark is. But again, Mark will always take that hit and he'll always keep going because he will power through basically anything that happens to him, regardless of the consequences to himself, to his, to his psyche, to the people around him.
This sounds like it was part of your pitch.
It wasn't actually, but it is something I've been thinking about recently.
I don't know, it sounds like, I can tell it's been on your mind about who Mark kind of is with that. Speaking of that, I mean, have you mapped out much further with Tom, and have you got any pushback from him or any ideas? Past this, because I feel like Hunter's Moon dropped pretty quickly. I mean, issue 1 and full appearance in issue 3 and getting his ass kicked in issue 3. He's obviously coming back. I don't want you to spoil anything, but it seems to us, at least, it's like there's no way that this character is kind of almost one-off. Something's got to be happening there.
Mags moved back to Egypt. He's still in town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically the reality of working in these kind of big corporate IPs, but also ones that aren't super huge. Because if you're writing something like Avengers, if you're writing something like X-Men, you can kind of take the time to slow burn things a little bit more.
Right.
Because, they're not going to cancel X-Men. They're not going to cancel Amazing Spider-Man. They will cancel Moon Knight if it doesn't sell.
Mm-hmm.
When you get in, I generally work with properties that are, they're not top of the pops, and there is always that threat of cancellation. So in order to get things done, we kind of got to move fairly quickly.
Right.
So got Hunter's Moon in there, and then we're keeping it going. So we're approved up to 12 issues.
Nice.
It's looking good that we'll get an extension further out, given how well the first 3 issues have been selling. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, excuse me, I got a bit of indigestion here.
Do it.
Yeah. That's a very poorly chosen Mackies for breakfast. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of the thing is you got to just basically ramp your momentum up and just get things going as fast as possible in order to get all.
Are editors asking you questions about your plans at least? I mean, are they saying like, obviously up to 12, you could burn through that pretty quickly. And if you're thinking that you probably get an extension, is someone like Tom Braveheart saying like, well, what are your ideas after 12?
I mean, he will, I think, probably fairly shortly.
Okay.
I'm
he's like, well, your head's a little off the chopping block right now. We'll see how long we can take this Moon Knight thing.
Tom is pretty. He believes in being fairly laissez-faire. He believes in like letting creators sort of chart their own course until they start going off course. In which case,
right. He seems pretty chill.
Yeah, no, it's been great working with Tom. I first worked with him on Avengers Mech Strike, and I was kind of terrified because I never worked with him before. Mm-hmm. And Tom's not a guy who sugarcoats things. So he's like, "This doesn't work," or like, "This is a bad idea," or "This isn't going to work." And I was like, "Man, that will destroy me." But but it's been great. We've had his input is. Thing is, he's generally always right. Like, I had stuff in my first Moon Knight pitch. He's like, "No, this isn't going to work. We maybe direct it in this way." I'm like, "Yeah, that's actually much better."
What were those things?
What's that?
Those things that you might bring back in your initial pitch, or was he like, "This is insane, stop it"?
Well, for instance, what my first idea was, regarding Hunter's Moon, mm-hmm. was that there would be, Fists of Khonshu all over the world, and they pissed off and Mark and all. Because I was like, it'd be fun to do
Moonlight Initiative.
Well, I was like, it'd be fun to do the International League of Batmen, but with Moonlight. It's like that's not going to work. It's dumb. He's like, just have one of them. And I was like, wait, yeah, there's two fists, and that's Moon and this like left and right hand of Khonshu, which is like so much. It's such a stronger idea than like having a Greek fist of Khonshu, and like having Hunter's Moon was one of them. I think I just called him Batter at that point in time.
Was Hunter's Moon always set out to be that character of like the type that Batter is, i.e. a doctor? Because I really, again, the comparisons between, I think Rebecca brought this up, the comparisons of Dr. Batter, the left fist of Khonshu, being a doctor, and Mark essentially being a patient. I love the actual contrast between the two. He's actually trying to fix Mark, the same as I guess Dr. Sturman is trying to fix. In that sense.
Trying to help.
Trying to help, yeah. But Hunter's Moon, I want to correct him, and he does it in a very harsh way. But very interesting.
I think part of it is I like the idea of Dr. Batter, in part because he is also establishing himself in Moon Knight's neighborhood as someone to go to for help, but in a strictly physical sense, because he runs a free clinic. Mm-hmm. So he's not a gangster. He's not a villain. He's a guy who's out there in the community doing good work. But from Mark's perspective, he's also an asshole who wants to beat him up and kill his vampire friends. But yeah, like I just thought it was an interesting contrast, and and it is in part because I used to teach up at a Muslim school, and I feel like every Egyptian parent that I met was a doctor. I was like, man, you guys are all doctors.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, like that's not a huge influence on it, but mainly it's just the idea that we have a vigilante who we don't. Or he's brought in as a villain or someone we don't want to like, but who is also doing good work for the people and doing, something that is uncontestably positive for the community.
It seems like you kind of introduced Hunter's Moon as like this villain, this adversary, but it sounds like you're kind of more moving him towards like the. Maybe eventually, and this will tie into one of Noel's questions, like the reluctant ally, or kind of like a well, this reference might be lost on everyone here, but kind of like the Goku and Vegeta situation where they start out as enemies and now they're kind of like working towards a single goal.
Is that a Sailor Moon reference? I don't get that.
I think it's Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you fucking nerds.
Had to get that one in there, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Hunter's Moon is not someone who's portrayed as an out-and-out villain. He is not in the moral right, certainly, as he's, trying to murder Reese and, Teddy and Ben and Shannon, excuse me. But, he's not there saying, like, I'm going to blow up a hospital or, like, I'm going to burn down the orphanage. What are you going to do, Moon Knight? Suck it. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see more of him and how his character develops as the issues go on. Yeah, we've got some. We'll find out where he came from. Why is the Fist of Khonshu? Why he thinks the way he does, or why is the Fist of Khonshu? Excuse me.
Sounds like a spin-off miniseries in the development already.
Fingers crossed.
I don't know.
It's good to hear he'll be coming back. That's nice because he came up so quickly for me. I'm so used to sort of the decompression of modern comics that personally I really like the fact that it was bam, bam, bam. I know that you're kind of a punk rock fan, so and Moon Knight's always been, at least to me. I mean, been a punk since I was like 8 years old, so it's like that's one of the things that drew me into the characters. He's like more of there's something more fast and violent about the character, and even in the writing styles, some of my favorite runs are more kind of quicker like that. So that's part of the reason why I've been enjoying it so much, is it just comes and goes really quickly. But I'm glad that you've got future plans for this dude because it's a cool character.
Yeah, and like that's kind of what we're trying to do. One of the reasons we set up this Midnight Mission situation is because I like this sort of procedural framework that you can use when needs be. Mm-hmm. And like you said, each issue, it moves fast. There's a lot of momentum and a lot of action and excitement. So it is very punchy. It's like a minute 30-second hardcore song.
Exactly.
But at the same time, this sort of procedural single issue story, I feel also plays into almost like a parable structure where, when you're getting into religious characters or characters based in fringe religion, is kind of an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. Church of Satan or something.
Church of Khonshu, certainly practice reform.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a lot to plunder with Hunter's Moon as well. Just little tidbits. I mean, Noel, you're saying how the quickfire introduction, which we certainly get for the first 3 issues, but there are little things as well, Jed, like Dr. Batter calls out Moon Knight as Mark Spector. That was something else that we kind of picked up as well, like his identity, which kind of fluctuates between secret and just known to a lot of people in the Marvel Universe. That was just an interesting idea, like whether, these Fists of Khonshu's have a dossier of information of each other and they know each other. So, very interesting to kind of investigate and, as you say, later on reveal a bit more of Hunter's Moon. I think that's great. Also, as well, you mentioned Cherry, Shannon, and Reese. Now, like this support cast, this ensemble, very different from, of course, what I would have thought like a lot of other loonies that a lot of other fans would have been waiting for, like the likes of Frenchie and Jenna and Crawley. Surprisingly, Jed, I guess it's testament to your writing. No one's really called out, on it and kind of had a whinge, if you know what I mean. No one's like gone, oh, God, where is it? Where is it? Like, why doesn't he use Frenchie? I mean, so there's a level of interest, and in particular at this stage, Reese, for sure. I mean, she's been fleshed out really well.
So good.
She's very cool. I'd love to see her in action, like being a vampire. Love to see her and the others in action. But Soldier as well. I mean, issue 2, with a name like Soldier, I just remember thinking, like, you can't give this guy up. Just one issue. He's got to come back.
Yeah, because we're kind of, Hunter's Moon comments on it. He says, already his congregation grows, already his cult gains adherents. And and it's kind of fun, bring in the neighborhood gang. You've got Reese, you got Terry, you got Soldier, and then next issue we've got Tigra showing up, or Tigra. Can't seem to figure out
the Tigra.
Tigra.
Tigra. Which actually.
Sorry.
There you go. There's the kid over here. Tiger actually, calls that out, and Mark, he's like, secret identity, please. This is a guy who made a TV show about Moon Knight. His secret identity is on IMDb.
Yeah, that's true.
That's great.
Executive producer, Spector.
Yeah.
So, like, he's not a guy who's paid and, really given a lot of serious work towards the secret identity. So,
okay, I thought maybe that might have led to something, but back to, I guess, that ensemble cast as well. Jed, of course, without giving too much away as well, or what you can, will we be seeing those guys in action, or the likes of Reese and Soldier?
Yes, we're just trying to think of the best way to phrase this without getting into too much. Not maybe inside baseball, but secret baseball. Basically, yeah. Long story short, we will see them getting out and doing stuff, but ultimately, Reese is not a superhero in training. She's a student. She's a vampire. Doesn't particularly like being a vampire. Given again, before this she was a vegan. But yeah, look, we're going to see these characters mixing it up. We're going to see the sort of drama and the adventures and the difficulties sweep them up into what's going to be going on, especially in the next couple issues.
Okay, excellent. Oh, nice.
Number 5 is going to be a big one. So,
ooh, lovely.
Scoop.
Number 5 is we find out who's been messing with Mark. So
so that's on 5, not in 6. Okay, I thought it was because we read
bang.
Yeah, we read the solicits, and I thought they mentioned that it may have been in 6, but cool. I mean, well, speaking of the big bad,
it's been difficult to write solicits.
Yep. Without
giving clues 2 months behind as to who this character might be. But so it's always like Moon Knight's secret enemy. It's here and has been for 2 issues, and you know who they are, but I can't say it in the solicit.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, right. But yeah, the big bad. I mean, this is another
the big bad.
I don't know what else to call him, or it, or a lot of theories abound. Jed, again, I threw my hat in the ring there. I said arcade. I know you said. All you can say is that this character is an established. Oh, there you go. For the people with the video.
Boy.
So when look, and I'm not going to put you in a spot, but I'm just going to lay it out for the listeners. So we know you did mention, I guess, not an established Moon Knight villain, right? So we can strike that off.
Yeah. So it's a Marvel character who has been around. It's not someone new that I made up, and it's not a Moon Knight character.
Yeah.
So
never been in a Moon Knight book that you know of?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
Right. I know there's a lot.
So that crosses off Hobgoblin for those who were saying Hobgoblin, but
yeah.
So
Goblin.
among the community, then who are the front runners here? Like, who's got best odds?
Well, you just knocked out a bunch of them, because a lot of people were saying Hobgoblin, and I saw a lot of people saying Black Spector, which I would have loved, but I kind of like where this is going. So
where's Hobgoblin coming from?
Well, I guess Hobgoblin had battled Moon Knight in the past, and there was a random variant cover that had Hobgoblin on it.
That's
so people,
true. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm throwing. Maybe I'm just throwing sand on my own trail. Who knows? But
I mean, we've got. I mean, also the clues as well, mainly from issue 1. You've got a big smiley face in the shadows. There was a flash of the Daily Bugle that I thought was on the wall that may not lead to anything. For me, there was the reference to vermin, vermin being used before, and arcade actually. Well, because my pick was arcade, was he had to do with vermin in Hunted, Amazing Spider-Man, and Nick Spencer. But also the other frontrunners, Jed, Blackout, I think, from Ghost Rider as well. And the other big one now, a lot of talk now of actually Hunter's Moon not being actually a thing and being part of Mark, being part of Moon Knight, and Moon Knight himself being his own enemy, alluded to at the beginning of issue 3. Yeah, so those are the front runners.
I had also said the Hood, but the Hood's been in a Moon Knight comic, so that throws him out.
It's the comedian from Watchmen, isn't it?
it's the Joker.
I mean, honestly, Arcade is a pretty good guess. I do like Arcade a lot.
Okay, so that's not okay.
Oh my God! Okay,
it is or not.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, honestly, it's.
I just got to.
I will say.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I would be surprised if someone guessed.
Okay.
It's someone who's, I think, probably kind of out of left field for a Moon Knight comic, but that I also think that they're a great fit as a foil for Moon Knight. So.
Okay.
I've got a guess right now. It just came to me. You said, that we had the smiling face in the shadows. You said Arcade was kind of a close choice. I'm throwing my hat in the ring that it's Cletus. It's Cletus Cassidy.
Oh, wow.
It's Carnage.
Jeez.
That would be quite a swing.
Yes.
Just
in time for Venom 2.
I was going to say it would also sound like a corporate mandate, but I don't think that's it.
Just open the Venom office, be like, "What the hell?"
Just finally, I mean, on that as well, I just want to throw out some love there to co-host, fellow High Priest Rebecca. She did throw in the ring as well, Despair. I don't know if you know that character, Jed, all the way from the clone. Yeah. Very obscure, but that's a drop in the ocean. So there you go, Rebecca.
Despair, I think, was in the earliest pitch for issue number 1, where we're going through Mark and all his adventures between his therapy sessions and whatnot. One of the people he was going to fight was Despair. But
wow. All right, Rebecca.
Picked it.
That's funny. People are really guessing my turn down pitch ideas. Someone was in Death Doctor Strange. Someone was like, "Oh, I really hope the killer is Vincent Stevens." I'm like, by first draft, it was. I was like, obscure '90s Doctor Strange ephemera, Vincent Stevens.
You gotta add some curtains to those windows, Jed, when you're typing away.
It just proves why you're the writer and these nerds aren't.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
I think that's all your discarded ideas.
It just shows that I have an editor and they don't.
Yes, there you go. You've got someone like Tom.
Yeah,
gonna go out on a limb and say it's not Doctor Doom.
Well, yeah, that's a.
I mean,
They've fought before.
For old Vic, but I mean, they'd be slumming.
Yeah. Noel, did you have something you wanted to ask Jed?
Well, now that I know it's not Dr. Doom, I don't care anymore.
Noel's pining away.
We'll see you in 10 years in the next Moon Knight series.
Well, Ray had brought up how some people thought, Hunter's Moon was, not real or something, or another part of Mark or something like that. But that lead me into a question about Mark's DID. And I know how you were sort of hesitant to at least discuss it sort of in the forefront early on in the issue, but are you going to talk about it later? And have you been hesitant because it is kind of a touchy subject to talk about, and it's hard to, we have a listener and someone who's contributed before who is part of a DID system and has been going through some of the old comics, just kind of rating it based on a comic book and then rating it based on tackling the subject of DID and been out most of the time being like, this is very wrong from the DID standpoint and the mental health standpoint. It's almost ridiculously wrong, but the story would be fun or whatever, and that's part of the reason why they got into it. But I'm just wondering, it's Is that kind of a touchy subject with you, or sort of in the, I don't know if you call it Moonlight office, the Moonlight closet, to talk about those kind of things? Because I mean, I know it is. I'm
sorry.
I got Ross, got him. Though it is. I mean, it's a the study of it is becoming more and more sort of advanced as time goes on. And I feel like it would almost be hard to, like, you would have to take on a full PhD to keep up with what's happening with the study into that disorder. So is it something that you're going to try to like work around, or were you sort of even told maybe to work around it in a different way? Because I know other writers have tried to, I think it was Ellis was kind of saying, no, you don't have DID. You have brain damage, which I thought was kind of a clever workaround. And there's so much sort of like stigma upon stigma now with the classification.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is DID, I mean, obviously DID is something that is extremely complex. And as you mentioned, something that the research on is ever advancing and ever changing, kind of what the definitions are for, people who are outside of it and are, don't understand it, are trying to. Part of the reason we've been shying away from it in the series so far is one of the two directives when, I got Moonlight was we want to move away from the KHONSHU stuff and we want to move away from the DID stuff. And not move away as in like a race or get rid of it, but move away from it as in not having it be the forefront of every story. Because as Tom put it, when either of those things become the focus of the story, that's all it's about. And we've seen Moon Knight stories where his DID is the main focus. Like the Bemis run was very heavy on seeing Mark interact with his other identities. So we've been kind of putting that to the side for the moment. And another part of it is DID is something that in comic books has been approached terribly. Not just in Moon Knight, but like just full stop. Mental illness in comic books has been approached terribly. Mm-hmm. And when we get to dealing with Mark and his DID, I want to make sure we're doing it basically on the best footing we can. I mentioned before on, the last time I was on the podcast, the two rules I had for, Mark and his DID is that I don't want to treat mental illness as a superpower. I don't want to treat mental illness as a joke, because I think in comic books, mental illness is often portrayed as one or the other, or sometimes both. And I don't think that's a very good way to approach it. And it's not something I want to do in a book that I'm working on.
Well, yeah, I know some people had problems with Max Bemis's run because he sort of treated it like a joke, and I think, I don't know if this was the case or not, but it kind of felt like he had carte blanche, because I know people know that he's an old friend of mine. I've known him forever. He suffers from some mental illness himself. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if just some people thought maybe that was kind of a mistake. It's not like he has DID. He's got his own issues. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. But it was almost made a joke out of. Say that again.
So I'm not sure what the response was when those issues are coming out, because I wasn't I wasn't paying attention at the time. Uh-huh. But as far as my own approach to how we are and will approach Mark's mental illness, his DID, it is something we're kind of building up to or waiting to approach, because we're just sort of focusing on the other parts of his life. The fact that the problems in his life are very rarely a result of his DID. They're a result of
right.
Mark's.
I loved that sort of take on it that you had before.
Yeah,
because it's, if anything, Jake Lockley and Stephen Grant are generally more functional than Mark Spector is in day-to-day life.
Well, that's what's the person with the in our group with who was part of the DID system had been like when there was a line. Was it issue 3 that said, that like Mark had said, I may have done this, I don't know. And they were kind of like, well, this sounds kind of like the evil alter trope or whatever. And we kind of all chimed in and said, I don't really think that's where Jed is going with it. Because first it just sounds like it would be too easy and too corny of a thing to do.
I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything when I say that that's not actually the case. There is a real person who is gunning for Mark. This is not going to be a situation where Mark has a new alter that is the big
right. Good.
That's kind of old hat at this point. And also great. So
that's what I thought too. I was like, that would be kind of a hacky answer to it. And Jed is a lot of things, but I don't feel like he's a hack. So. Not that hacky.
I validate my hackery, but I mean, I do write comic books for a living, so
fair enough.
But no, that's right. I mean, I because I thought like in issue 1, you really did draw that line in the sand, Jed, as well, about saying that with that conversation with Mr. Knight and Dr. Sturman on the bench in the park, that the DIDs, it's much more than that. I can't remember the term. It's about when a deity touches you, like the brain. So, but yeah, the wording in that issue 3, just conversations in our group, and especially speaking with one of our members, because one of the risks is stigmatizing DID with an evil alter. So
I mean, and like I said, his DID is kind of like the least of his problems in that. I did. There's a lot of exciting Moon Knight stuff coming up. I think in March, so it should be solicited soon. But
awesome.
There's a bit. I wrote a very sort of ugly, violent story for Mark coming up.
Yes.
It's kind of dealing with his sort of mental fragility, but not in a DID sense, but in the sense that will go back to old patterns of behavior. Because I mean, Mark Spector in the past, not great.
Yeah, his anger issues.
Well, his anger issues, the fact that he was, he went from the Marines to the CIA to just like a freelance war criminal. That, his old dog days are always in danger of coming back to haunt him. And we'll kind of see that effect on him as we go through there.
Very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, and as far as the DID stuff, I am also kind of just waiting for the right moment to put it in, because I think it's something that can be very useful in a story, but you just have to be very delicate in how to approach it and when to use it and when to bring it in. I mean, we're talking about fictional characters, and the things that make these fictional characters up are brought in for dramatic effect or for story effect, and to keep things interesting. It's just a matter of juggling that with being sensitive to people who are suffering from mental illness, and trying to do it in a way, that is feels real, feels lived. It doesn't feel sensationalistic.
Yeah, no, that's true. Fair enough. Russell, before we get into, I guess, Jed, we do have a lot, and thank you so much, Loonies, for sending in some feedback. But Russell, I know you've got a fair few questions towards Jed that you'd like to ask.
Yeah, I'll try to get these out as quick as possible.
1, 2, 3, 4, go.
So we've established that you kind of want to shy away from older Moon Knight villains. You kind of want to create new ones, maybe some other villains from across the Marvel universe. But do you have a favorite old school Moon Knight villain? And also, since we know that you're quite familiar with the Taskmaster, any chance of a rematch there?
Well, that would be great.
Russell's just trying to get you to say Black Spectre. So just say Black Spectre.
As I said before, I'm pretty sure Mark murdered the Black Spectre on television, didn't he?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything in comic books, Jed.
Did he do it twice? He did it twice.
He did it. Well, he survived the first fall.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he'll come back as the left ball of KHONSHU.
But actually, I think recently I just turned in one, which I don't think is a big spoiler because this is something that will be in the solicits, but did a Stained Glass Scarlet story.
Oh,
yes.
Stained Glass
Awesome.
Stained Glass Scarlet is a character that I kind of love and hate in that I think she's really interesting. Like I really loved her first 2 appearances in the Moon Knight proper series, and then then later in Mark Spector Moon Knight, when she was in that 5-part interminable Crimson Redemption or whatever it was called. I was like, why is it 5 issues long? This is driving me crazy.
JMD Mateus, that's why.
Yeah, which no shade. It just was not my thing.
Yeah.
So I got to thinking like, oh, how can I think this character is really interesting. I think she's an interesting foil for Moon Knight. What can I do with her? So I can't. We've got a new take on Stained Glass Scarlet coming out. Hopefully,
that's really exciting.
I think it will perhaps upset some people, and not by upset because it's horribly offensive, but it's
a new take.
It's a very different kind of Stained Glass Scarlet story.
Okay.
So, I'm just thinking. Thank God you didn't say Bushman because I'm sick of Bushman. But but
the thing is, I think everybody's sick of Bushman.
Yeah.
I think when Tom sent me what he was looking for a Moon Knight series, I think in brackets he said, "I don't think anyone ever wants to see Raoul Bushman again." Fair enough.
Yeah. Oh, he's got plenty of rogues anyway, so there's a lot to choose from.
And
that's actually really exciting though. Stained Glass Scarlet hasn't was the 1999 was her last appearance.
Yeah,
Resurrection
in a long time.
Yeah, whatever the miniseries with the
Resurrection War
with all the villains. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and about Taskmaster, any chance?
Yeah, I won't rule it out.
Okay.
Excellent.
About Taskmaster. I would be very surprised if he would run into Moon Knight of his own volition, though. So that would be an needle to thread, so to speak.
Yeah. Now this is my big question. I guess I'll end with this one. Yeah, I know you can't really say much about where the story is going, but with the introduction of vampires and how pivotal they are, is there a chance we're going to see that meme rivalry of Moon Knight and Dracula come to the page? And would you be interested in writing a Tomb of Dracula relaunch?
I mean, people have asked me a lot. They're like, "Oh, are we going to see Dracula? Is he going to say, he's going to say the line where,
Yeah.
Honestly, if I did that, I guarantee you, people would not like it. You give people what they want or what they think they want, and then they turn on you. That said, I do
never
like
give the people what they want.
Yeah, exactly. There was a while I kept putting him in things. I was going to make when I was writing the Spider-Verse series a few years ago. I think my first stab at the villain was like Dracula, but with the Venom symbiote from a different universe. I was
my God.
Nice.
I was like, why do you keep putting Dracula in everything? I'm like, Dracula rules.
Yeah, Dracula rules. That should be a T-shirt.
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, I have kind of like a back pocket pitch kicking around from years ago for like a Tomb of Dracula.
Ooh.
But it's also something that came up a few years ago, so it is probably not very good.
Well, Dracula's been popping up a lot recently in Marvel again. I mean, Jason Aaron used him in the Avengers, and
it's you'll see him in Death of Doctor Strange Blade.
Yeah, nice.
Now I'm kind of upset that they've went with this kind of like warlord Dracula. I kind of miss. Just give me the old Bela Lugosi cape and tuxedo Dracula. But
the current Dracula is not like the Blood Knight Dracula anymore, right? He's just like he's old Bela Lugosi Dracula. If I'm mistaken.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm
since then, but last I saw him in Avengers, he was just like really kind of decrepit, almost like Gary at the first time we see him in
Bram Stoker's.
Bram Stoker's, yeah.
Yeah, I think the last thing I saw him in was he cameoed in King in Black, and he still looked like he was like the warlord Dracula to me.
Okay.
But anyway, that's all I got Unless you wanna pick between Hobgoblin and Green Goblin, just for my own benefit here.
I mean, I like Hobgoblin's suit better.
Yeah, like a hobby as well. He's good.
I think that orange and kind of teal turquoise color scheme pops. I love it.
Cool. All right. Well, Jed, to round out just this chat as well. Again, thank you so much for joining. We've got a little bit of a Q&A here. A lot of Loony listeners have and Moon Knight fans have written in. So this is our Q&A. Going to call it the moon boon. The gospel according to Jed. So
you tried, Ray.
I'm going to shoot these off at you, Jed. Okay. And look, if we've covered it, because I'm going to be like in the zone, just go bam, covered, and we'll move on. Just quick fire responses. Okay. So the first one from Keith Bunker from Inside the Bunker podcast. What are your favourite Moon Knight runs prior to him currently to you currently writing the series?
I mean, my favorite Moon Knight run is always going to be the 2014 one, the one Declan drew.
Yeah.
That's what really kind of brought me into the character. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably has the most influence on my run our run. I'm not doing all this myself. Our run as it goes, but also the original run, the very first one. It's got such.
Those are exactly my two favorite as well.
Yeah, it's just I like the 2014 one a lot because it builds a structure and a mood for Moon Knight that I think really works. Mm-hmm. But also like the original one because it touches much more on sort of Mark's humanity, whereas our Moon Knight that we see in that series is largely a cipher. We don't really know anything about him. He's just there brutalizing people in awesome ways. So that's kind of what we're doing is trying to take what I think are some of the best parts of both and kind of jam them together.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair. And there's nothing better than brutalizing in awesome ways. Next we have a two-pronged question from Kyle Carr, a Patroni, and a fellow Loony. Joke question: when can we expect Hunter's Moon to be revealed as a werewolf?
Well, I mean, thing is that costume does not look cheap. So all the time, it's not something you want to do.
Exactly. And his actual question: what's your approach to plotting out a series? Do you have an end game you're working towards, or are you more interested in keeping to one storyline at a time?
With a series like this, the idea basically when I first started it, I plotted 5 issues because if I'm pitching something and I know other people are also pitching it, you need to strike the balance between showing that you have a lot of good ideas, but also not spending all your time doing this when you may get you nothing. So a lot of it was just it came down to sort of tone, to feel for these kind of the big ideas. As it progressed, I figured out who the baddies are. And again, this was coming in a series of episodes. So I would try to have discrete ideas coming in for each episode, something exciting and different and new every month. Excuse me. But now I know the end game of this arc. I know how it's going to end. And generally the challenge is finding discrete stories is this kind of episodic procedural sort of thing to put in each issue, but we'll also providing hints or not necessarily hints, but fodder or substance for the larger arc as it goes forward.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. Also, I think we've answered this anyway, but I want to shout out J.A. Cunningham and Daniel Coy, both asking similar things. Basically, can we expect any rogues galleries, any of Mark's rogues from his gallery? You mentioned Stained Glass Skullet for that one, so that's pretty straightforward. Thank you, J.A. and Daniel. Hasil Escoto says, are there any future plans to bring Chainsaw back for a whole run?
Mark's Chainsaw?
Yeah, I think so. From the Mark Spector, yeah.
It's the thing is, it's very difficult to use a glider cape where you're carrying a chainsaw. It's a bit cumbersome.
Yeah.
Once he gets the kinks worked out of that, then the sky's the limit.
Please tell me that was an Evil Dead reference.
Oh, it could have well been. I hope so.
I mean, pretty much any use of a chainsaw is either going to be Texas Chainsaw or Evil Dead.
Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Props to Ash. Love him. Mario Di Giacomo. So he gives 3 questions. One, do you have any plans of addressing Moon Knight has a daughter from the Bemis run?
It's not something that we're pretending never happened. So this will it'll be brought up.
Okay.
Actually, next week, I think.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool.
That makes sense.
Just talking with Tigra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to spend your $5. You got to find out, man.
Exactly. Sorry, Mario's second question. So do you see Khonshu as an ordinary Egyptian god like Seth or Horus, or something else? So is he kind of like an established, do you see him as an established deity or god in the Marvel Universe?
It's honestly, it's not something, the specifics of which I've really worked out, because I don't know how important it is for us in this book. Because there's kind of been a lot of frigging around with who the Egyptian gods are in the Marvel Universe and how they work. Mm-hmm. Are they aliens in a spaceship, or are they ancient embodiments? Because I mean, we see Khonshu going back to prehistory. There's the caveman Moon Knight, or caveman Fist of Khonshu with the crystal in Avengers. I don't think it's something I'm particularly interested in nailing down, because I don't think it's particularly useful for our story.
Did that kind of bum you out when Jason Aaron and sort of cemented him as like a real thing?
Yeah, took away the ambiguity. Yeah,
it kind of was what it was.
Right.
When it
but
was
did
done.
it bum you out?
I didn't particularly care. I generally try not to let things in comics bother me.
That's very smart.
Outside Alpha Flight stopping being a Canadian thing and being a space thing. I was like, you took our
bums me out. Yeah.
Yes.
We have one team. Just joking. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it didn't particularly bother me. It just told me what the status quo was moving into this book.
Okay.
So at least for our purposes, what's important is that Khonshu is there. Khonshu has power, and Khonshu is not super reliable,
as always.
Or perhaps, yeah, exactly. Is not perhaps someone you want to be taking advice from all the time. Mm-hmm. And we'll see more of that as we go along here.
Excellent.
Yeah, I just imagine mythology and Marvel Universe is just like, I don't even know where to start, because there's like 4 different versions of hell in this place. Like,
yeah, it's more than that, I think. I remember I was talking to Ed about it when he was doing Ghost Rider, and he was basically like, I think at the back of the first issue they have like basically a dictionary of hells in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Wow. Mario's third question, I think we've covered. He says, have you been tempted to reference that gag panel in the comic proper, talking about vampires, Dracula? Yep. So there you go. Thank you, Mario. Daniel Coy, he's returned with a few other questions. Now, would you like, Jed, or do you have plans for Moon Knight to team up with, I don't know, Black Cat or a dead Doctor Strange?
Actually, Moon Knight will appear in Death of Doctor Strange Spider-Man, which has Black, and it's a Death of Doctor Strange book. So there you go, bingo bango.
Awesome, that's a big scoop there. Looney's, everyone's going to be putting that on their pull list now for sure. Like,
he's not co-starring; he appears in it.
Yeah. That's good enough.
I was tempted at one point to say that the big bad was Dormammu. But I figured that doesn't quite fit. So I
think Dormammu is that his head is on fire. So by definition, there's no such thing as a dark room when he's around.
No, exactly.
Right. But
set off the sprinklers.
But he did use the hood as a herald at one point, so I was just kind of connecting the dots there. But
yeah. Daniel continues as well and asks, would you be interested in writing a live-action Moon Knight episode, I guess, if given the opportunity?
I mean, sure. I don't think it's something that's going to happen, but...
Yeah, is that... Have you done script writing? Is that so much different from comic book writing? I'm not too sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I did. I wrote an issue, or not issue. I wrote an episode of Ninja Turtles a few years back.
Oh, wow.
The computer animated one.
Yeah.
Not the.
Oh,
that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, my friend Sheldon, who he was, we kind of came into comics together. He was an artist. Well, he remains an artist, and we were working together, and he's how I got into working for Marvel, because they hired him to do a story and he didn't know what he wanted to do, so he brought me in to write it. Anyways, he was doing storyboards for Ninja Turtles, and put my name to the showrunner, and they got me to write an episode. And it was interesting. Turned out it was the last episode to ever air of that series. So
wow,
I may have killed it.
Are you a Turtles fan?
Yeah. I've got.
It's in arm's reach.
Ooh. Oh hell yeah! I got those right there.
These guys love turtles.
The old black and white kind of phone book.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Those are actually some of the last comics I kind of bought as a kid. Before I was turned off to comics for a long time. It was the original Turtles.
Yeah, I kept finding these in used bookstore in the town I went to high school in. So I was like, man, it's great, because it was just. I was born in '83, so most of the digital stuff I would be into growing up was the cartoon stuff, and the cartoon, and to lock into that old black and white stuff it was such a game changer.
Yeah,
yeah, it's so funny for me because I was about 10 when that stuff started coming out. So most of my friends are younger than I am, so they're always like, Ninja Turtles, isn't that the cartoon? I'm like, I just have to hand them any issue of the first Mirage stuff, and they're like, oh shit, this is actually pretty cool.
Oh, that first live action movie is still pretty close to the Mirage comics. So,
well, the bandanas are different colors though, so fuck it.
Right.
Yeah, until they had the Daredevil TV show, that '90s Turtles movie was basically the best Daredevil movie that was out.
Totally.
Oh wow.
It's like at that gnarly, real rotten apple in New York, just particularly perfectly zeroed in. These gangs of dirtbag kids working for a ninja organization. It's awesome.
Totally.
That's awesome.
Daredevil versus the Shredder. Right? But anyway.
Just this one's not a question. It seems to be a request or a demand. Muhammad Malik says, "Can you write Sentry, please?" So I don't know your thoughts on Sentry. Like him?
I mean, he's dead.
Yeah, my pal Noel ripped him in half. Spoilers, but
and the Thunderbolts carried him around for a while, and that King of Black Thunderbolts that Matt and Juan did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of goes into you talking about not wanting to do evil alters, doesn't it? Because that's what the Sentry's all about.
Well, yeah, it's a good point. That's all.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Sam Wiley says, I would love to know more about your relationship with the other creatives on the book, Alessandro Cappuccio and Rochelle Rosenberg. You're working so well together so far. I'd love to hear your perspective on working with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's, by definition, it's a long-distance relationship. Alessandro lives in Italy. Rochelle lives in the States. I live in Canada, maritime Canada. It's a great working relationship. But working with Alessandro has been great because, he's a young guy. He's really hungry. This is his first Marvel book, as far as I know, and he's just, going at it. And it's great to see. And you can see him improving in real time because, he's cranking out 20 pages a month, and you do anything over and over again, you're going to just see yourself improve and improve and improve. And he's been a huge I don't want to say surprise, but like it's just been a real kind of revelation seeing his work, coming from layouts, then into inks, and then once Rochelle gets the colors in, and it's just been such a good looking book in a way that I hadn't quite anticipated. Because but when I was writing the first scripts, I didn't know who was on art, so a lot of writing a script is imagining this in your head and how it's going to look and how it's going to work, and then putting it down on paper so that someone else can try to figure out what you were thinking.
Yeah.
And actually draw the thing, actually do the work, the hard part. So yeah, it's and Alessandra's super positive. He's super energetic. Anytime that I'm like, well, maybe we need to move this thing or change this character or do this thing. Issue 2, when they've got Soldier on the table, and I was like, oh, he's got these tattoos or whatever, and turns it in, and it's all like tribal tattoos. Like, no, I should have specified it's like blacked out kind of stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, great, no problem, and then just like turns it around in like an hour.
Wow.
Is he working digitally?
What's that?
Is he working digitally then?
Yeah,
Make those fast
His stuff's
changes.
all cool. Which I think is part of why he's able to work so quickly and so reliably, and being able to make those changes on the fly is really useful. But I mean, honestly, as each issue goes by, I have fewer and fewer notes. We're just really kind of getting in lockstep with one another and making it work.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that synergy is good. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I don't know if I brought it up last time or not, but I brought it up before where when I wrote the script and sent it off, I didn't know what costume he was going to be wearing. I assumed Moonlight, not Alessandro.
Yeah.
I assumed just be like the classic white costume. And Alessandro is like, no, I want to use Declan's costume. I was like, okay. In my head, I'm like, almost nobody can draw that costume except Declan. But
he's done well, hasn't he? Like,
Yeah, that's great.
it's fantastic, and he's got that look to the costume that really harkens back to the his first appearances when it's not necessarily a white costume, but they describe him as a silver and jet.
Yep.
And
It's
so
kind of gleaming.
So even the blacks kind of shine with white, and like it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
And then Rochelle just does her thing. She gets the pages.
Oh my god.
She's basically, and then she sends all 20 pages in. She's like, it's done.
Yeah.
And we're all just like, there's not much to say. This looks amazing.
I was issue 3. I was just wowed at her colors. Like, I was compelled
palette.
to just like put something up on Instagram and like just like fawn over, like, because it was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I really did love it.
Yeah. She's basically, between the two of them, there's something I'm really, really happy with, and can take no credit for since I didn't have nothing to do with it. But there's just a real kind of identity to this book. There's a real look to it that I think is something that a book like Moon Knight needs. I think Moon Knight is a character who is so distinct looking, and his world is so very much of his own territory that Moon Knight book really needs to have its own visual identity, its own visual vocabulary, in a way that I think other books maybe don't. I want to say don't rely on, but maybe don't require as much.
Just a few more, Jed, as well. So I just don't want to encroach on your time. That's all. So we got another one here from Russell. Will be familiar with this gentleman, Justin the Owl Osgood.
Oh, that bastard!
Justin's a co-host with Russell, and Justin writes in, "Hello, Jed, and please keep up the great work with the new series. 2 questions, and apologies if they are repeats. Okay, so which Moon Knight comics from the past did you enjoy reading the most in preparation for this new series? Not only from the viewpoint of a comic reader and fan, but also as a writer. Would you say that would be the Ellis run as well, or was there something another run?"
It's about the same, but also in reading all this Moon Knight stuff, is that I don't think that there's a Moon Knight run where there's nothing interesting that can be taken from it. I know fans can feel quite strongly about one run or another, not just in Moon Knight, or whatever sort of property you get. But I think there's interesting stuff to be drawn from pretty much every run, where people are very keen on the unrestrained brutality of the Houston run, and I think that it's something that I'm not necessarily drawing from that run, but I think that's a very important part of the character's history.
Mm-hmm.
In that's what a lot of people on the street know about Moon Knight, is that he is just an absolutely ruthless person to deal with. When it may or may not be true anymore, but that's a reputation that hangs around him it has hung around him for a long time. The amount of times, and I've done it myself because it's useful shorthand where people talk about him cutting off someone's face.
Yeah.
Because that's his Hank Pym slapping his wife moment, where it's always going to be something horrible that he's done. And I don't necessarily think the character needs to get over it, but it's just an easy bit of shorthand to kind of hang your hat on by saying, this is how the superhero community, the supervillain community sees Moon Knight because of the things that he's done in the past.
Yeah, it certainly was a redefining run by Houston, 2006. There's always been talk about that being the heralding in the modern era for Moon Knight. And
some people consider it like the defining run of Moon Knight too.
Yeah.
Not myself,
but if you look at, again, as you said, Jed, if you look at the rich history of Moon Knight, I mean, that's only one part of it. It's only 30 odd issues compared to the 350 odd issues out there of Moon Knight. So yeah, I mean, but if you love it, that's great. Justin,
this just real quick, Ray. Sorry, I just wanted to say this might be kind of out of left field, but I feel like, Jed, your voice for Moon Knight, to me, compared to the previous incarnations and writers we've gotten over the years, the closest to me is like Vengeance of the Moon Knight, because it's kind of Vengeance of the Moon Knight was his redemption arc after cutting faces off and all that, and your run kind of feels like not necessarily a redemption, but him trying to atone for his god's sins in a lot of ways. So it's kind of a similar vibe.
Yeah, because I mean, in our story, we're looking at Mark. He is definitely looking for a change, but it's less redemption, more sort of a reorientation. Mm-hmm. He's trying to figure out, who he is without this force in his life, KHONSHU, that has been usually his ally, often, at times an antagonist, and just trying to figure out who he is as a person or as a superhero. Mm-hmm. And despite the fact that he's rejected KHONSHU, he's still the Fist of KHONSHU. He still wears Moon Knight costume. He isn't, he didn't take up, the Nomad costume or something,
Those discs are just ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah. Chest one, the head side.
Exactly. Speaking of one-offs, which Justin also says in his second question, which minor supporting character or a one-off villain from Moon Knight's past do you feel could be dusted off and given a new and fresh interpretation today? So, I don't know, plumbing the depths of the Moon Knight characters out there.
Well, we know we've got Stained Glass Scarlet, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I think that he's got a lot of great characters to draw from. Someone I was entertained by is Detective Flint, who seems he's drawn wildly different. And it's also really funny to me that Mark fucking around got him fired.
Yeah.
It's just like that one panel at the end of that issue where he's just like cleaning out his desk. He's like, man, this is what I get. This is what I get for trusting Moonlight, not to like cut this dude's hand off or whatever he did to that guy.
Yeah, poor bastard. Russell, you had something.
I'm not sure how this one got in here, Jed, but damn it, Justin wants to know what your thoughts on the Bi Beast are.
On the Bi Beast? The Thor thing has got like two faces.
Yeah.
I mean, good for them, I guess.
Random.
Oh, he's gonna love that. He's gonna love that. We have a running gag on our show about the By Beast. So just threw that one in there for Justin.
On Instagram, Jed, one from Rafael Santos, who's a great artist actually as well. We've been featuring his artwork on Moon Knight. He's going through all the costumes of Moon Knight every week.
I saw those.
Yeah,
those are great.
Yeah, I think it's from Brazil. Really nice chap. Any chance of any chances for an eclipsed or blood moon night? I think he is referring to
Dark Knight. What are you talking about?
Some sort of Shadow Knight, perhaps.
But no, thank you, Raphael. I don't know, Jed, if you have any.
I will say that Hunter's Moon was probably the hardest character in the world to name. Like,
Right,
I was just banging my head against a wall trying to figure out what the hell I was going to call that guy.
Waxing gibbous.
Yeah, I mean, but I had all kinds of things. I think I was like looking at the features of the moon. I was like, should I name him after like Olympus Mons or something? No, wait, that's Mars. Name him after a mountain on the moon or something. It was just driving me crazy.
Sid Barrett could have been a Pink Floyd reference.
Yeah, but I feel like legal would have difficulties with that.
Just spell it S-I-D.
Could have called him Full Moon Knight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's
good.
large.
Yeah.
It's big. Yeah, so I basically anything that was even vaguely moon related has gone through my head at some point to name that guy. And I settled on Hunter's Moon, which it's perhaps not the most elegant of names, but I do like it.
That's pretty
think it
cool.
sounds cool.
It's got Hunter's Moon.
Yeah.
Blood Moon. Moon Knight was about to be called Blood Moon back in the day as well. So thank God they changed it to Moon Knight. Also from a Spectral Crescent Comics, it's from Instagram. I think we've covered this. What were your inspirations for how you decided to portray Moon Knight in this series? Yep. Any particular Moon Knight writers or artists in the past that you drew? So I think we've covered that before.
Like, for me, I think, Declan Shalvey is always going to be kind of modern Moon Knight artist. His kind of reimagining of the character and the world, I think, is something that has such an impact now that I don't, it's going to be, he's, really made his mark on that character. Because, from him, we got, the Mr. Knight look, which is, it's immediately iconic. That said, we're coming for you, Declan. We're coming for you.
Oh,
Still waiting for the Mr. Knight Legends figure myself.
I'm waiting for him to admit
Please.
that he ripped off Steve Ditko with the design.
oh,
It looks a lot like Mr. A. We've got to admit.
it really does, and I'm a big Question fan, so
Little trilby, though.
Hmm?
He doesn't have like a little trilby.
That's true. He should. Should write that in.
hey,
Mr. A joke. Not like it's a good character, but it's a cool design.
that makes me want to ask Jed. Would you be interested in writing the Question?
Oh yeah, I love Question. Question's my favorite DC character.
Oh,
wow.
Hell
Nice.
yeah!
Nice.
Hell yeah!
If you can
Oh,
see
he's
it,
got
because-
arms reach
Oh
again.
man!
Love
You
it.
wouldn't be the first Moon Knight alum to write the question if so.
So
No, that's true.
Sorry, Looney's those that do have video. Jed was just showing his collection just behind him there. Just a couple more here, Jed. I've left a good one for last from Instagram. Just a couple here. Combined one, I guess, from SK Metal and Make Mine Moon Knight. They're basically asking, can we expect to see Jake, Stephen, or Mark pop up in the series?
Yes, eventually.
Ah, nice one. Because I think at the moment, 3 issues, they've been the profile photo shots.
Yeah, good reference, but we've not.
Yeah. Have we been seeing Mark?
I like his face.
No, just like, is it Mark behind the mask right now?
I mean,
Don't know.
do you want to tell you?
No.
No, I don't. I don't want that.
It's not a huge thing, but I mean, we'll I mean, we'll kind of get into a next issue anyway. I feel like a lot of times I'm saying we're doing this next issue, but
that's a bumper
Like
issue.
comic books, huh?
Yeah.
It's actually been Marlene under there the whole time.
That'd be awesome.
it's French.
It's Frenchie. Oh, awesome. Oh, he's more than
mustache
capable.
he was eating though.
Yeah, the twirly.
It's actually yes.
Sorry,
Yeah,
what was that?
It's actually Crawley under the mask.
Oh,
That's my
We don't-
favorite
We didn't
old
see
school
flies
side
coming
character.
carrying a tea bag. Yeah. And finally, just from our Facebook Messenger. Now, this is Lena. So Lena's part of a DID system. One of the few loonies that do have DID in our community. And Lena writes, and again, I think we have covered this. Jed, do you have any plan to delve deeper into the DID aspect in the future issues? I think you said you probably put a pin on it for the moment, and
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, something that I want to approach as we get further in.
yeah, fair enough.
Because it's ultimately it's not something I necessarily want to use as the axis of an entire arc or something like that. But it is something I want to. It is something I think that we want to address because it is. It's something that is a big part of the character, and it's something that is a big part of what we know of the character, or how people know about the character.
I mean, Lena also as well. They're putting up their hand. If you'd like to chat with someone who has DID and learn more about it, Lena is more than happy to. Yeah, very fantastic. Lena's been great. We've been doing a segment called Understanding DID, just to dispel a lot of myths and stuff and understand it a bit more, just rather than just a casual knowledge of it. So Lena's been great in that. She's been they've been writing articles for us, so that's really good. All on the website you can check out as well. That about covers it, Jed. Thank you so much for coming on and putting up with this rabble here. I know you've been very kind. Thank you.
It's great to talk about Compost. Great to talk about Moon Knight.
Yeah, excellent. Any last words, guys?
Oh no, just plug some stuff, Jed.
Yeah,
what else is coming
absolutely.
out besides Moon Knight?
We got lots coming out. Next week we got Magic number 7. It's a big deal issue. We want to try to make them all big deal issues, but that's coming out. Next month we've got Moon Knight number 4. Tiger's coming back. A little West Coast Avengers reunion. I got Death of Doctor Strange number 2.
Yes,
where
awesome.
Things get worse for everybody. What else do I got? There's no Black Cat next month. That's not till November. Yeah, we got a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipe. We're going to see Moon Knight, a little more than we're used to seeing him, so that will be good. In November, we've got Death of Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, where Moon Knight will be making an appearance, which features Spider-Man and Black Cat. So there you go. This year, Spider-Man or your Black Cat, Moon Knight, crossing paths that you asked for.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what's going on?
Fantastic. Well, yeah,
Awesome.
Keep a track of that as well. Russell, anything? Any last words?
Who's your favorite Dracula?
I gotta go for the Oldman.
Yes, I like old Gary Oldman Dracula with the punsy hairdo. I love it.
I was hoping you'd say Leslie Nielsen, but
Yeah,
No.
red arm. Yeah, that I love Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's dope.
Excellent.
That's all I've got.
No worries. Well, Jed, thank you once again so much for your time, and Loony listeners, just keep on reading Jed's fantastic run so far with Alessandro Cappuccio and Rochelle Rosenberg.
Keep outselling Batman. Please.
That would be that'd be a real fun trend to keep going. So why don't we all
do that. Let's try as hard as we can, Loonies, to keep on ordering, get your pre-orders in, keep Moon Knight in the whatever of pop culture. Yeah.
Let's keep going to second printings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second,
and
third, fourth.
printings.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jed.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alan.
I'm Rebecca. And if you're listening to this, then we recommend that you check out our podcast, the DCAU Podcast, where we watch the original DC animated movies, starting from Batman Mask of the Phantasm and continuing on to Justice League Dark, Apocalypse War, and beyond. And we will cover such heroes as Batman,
Superman,
the Batman,
Wonder Woman,
Victorian Steampunk Batman,
The Flash,
Batman Beyond,
Green Lantern,
Old Man Batman,
Martian Manhunter.
and plenty more versions of Batman.
Lots and lots and lots of Batman.
You can find the DCAU podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can get podcasts by looking up the DCAU podcast and subscribe today.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You're listening to Into the Night, the Moonlight podcast. And on the other side of that break, you heard our chat with Jed MacKay. A big thank you to Jed, of course, and big thanks to Noel and to Russell for jumping in as well and for joining the chat. It was really fun. Apologies, there may be some references to visual gags, which is available on our video for Patroonies, our Patreon members, but hopefully that didn't disrupt too much. But amazing stuff. I mean, wow, we got some scoops there from Jed. We got a confirmation of an upcoming Stained Glass Scarlet appearance. We have a Moon Knight appearance in the Death of Doctor Strange Spider-Man issue. And we learnt stuff about Jed as well. So I thought it was just amazing to hear, about his script writing for the Ninja Turtles of all things. Anyway, Loonies, let's wrap up this show. I mean, you've heard the bulk of it, but there are some bits of feedback that I'd just like to shout out before we go. These are for previous episodes. So for our Nightlines for YouTube, from YouTube, in response to our episode 238, which was our review of Moon Knight issue 3 by Jed MacKay and Cappuccio and Rosenberg, Two-Fisted. Sister Mercy writes in and he gives us, we did chat a bit about potential West Coast Avengers on the small screen or big screen in the MCU. And Sister Mercy writes, West Coast Avengers, you can have Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, Vision, Moon Knight, War Machine, a US Agent, and Hank Pym. I'd be so down for this. Realistically, they would introduce a new character for a new show, so I'd probably swipe out Pym for Tigra. And I probably would too, as well. Big fan of Tigra. And yeah, thank you, Sister Mercy. My gosh, yeah, it does show that we can get a West Coast Avengers team with the characters that have already been established. So thanks for that, for sure. Also, on the same episode, CMK7 beep boop beep boop boop writes in and says, terrific soup to nuts review of this solid new issue. What do you wager Hunter's Moon eventually comes to Mark's aid or teams up with him against the looming villain in the shadows? Also, I really like Jed's addition of those holding the Fist of Khonshu mantle are able to channel abilities and skills of previous fists. Even though Mark stated he was unaware of this ability, what do you think the odds that Mark unconsciously channeled this ability in the past? That's a very interesting point. It would certainly explain Mark being able to best sword masters at their own game or utilise complicated and exotic weapons. 3-section staff with mastery level skill. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for those comments. And yeah, I mean, we did chat about that with Jed in our chat, which you've heard just gone by then. Yeah, very interesting. I like that headcanon, Chris. I think that certainly works well to the past. I mean, we've always had this like blanket statement that he's the master of weapons. I mean, if you look at the Handbook of Marvel Universe, it's something like he's a master of all martial arts, stuff like some ridiculous level. But you could go well and explain that by saying the chorus of Ordination has something to do with it. So I like the way you think, Chris. Thank you so much for all that. Those were the two bits of feedback I just want to include into this show. So once again, thank you so much for listening, Loonies. Next phase, episode 242, we'll be doing it's a waxing crescent in the sky, but we'll be doing a waning crescent. I posted something up, had words with KHONSHU, he's okay with it. So we're doing a Lunapic Classic book review, and it's on the Punisher Annual number 2, which features Moon Knight. That's actually the first team up between the Punisher and Moon Knight, so that should be a cracker, and that's with Justin the Owl Osgood, so I can't wait to unpack that with Justin. Yeah, and so Loonies, that pretty much covers it. I mean, as always, with Patreon, patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight, please check that out for all the incentives. I'm releasing bonus episodes each month, plus you get video content, you get raw material, so there's actually a lot of stuff that, for instance, Jed and Noel and Russell and I we chatted about off air, which makes its way onto the tape. You can listen in on that. Those sorts of incentives you can get at Patreon, so please check it out if you can. Also, again, Dreamland Comics, the superhero superstore. If you use the code MOON, you'll get 20% off their online store. And Fringe Night by Daniel Doing. If you check out his Patreon, patreon.com/Fringe Night 27, you can support his creation of Fringe Night, releasing comic books, writing stories. It's really great. He's got a great series happening there. And finally, with Drew Toonz on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Toonz, or Lurk Music with a CK. That's lurkmusic.bandcamp.com. You can support Drew's music there, and Drew there's a bundle you can get at Bandcamp for a discounted price. You can get his discography. It's really great. I'd really highly recommend it. I just immersed myself in those haunting soundscapes. And finally, we're part of the collective. You can listen to like-minded shows. They're really cool. Not only Marvel, but DC as well. Character-based or just straight-out geek-based. So the likes of the DCAU, DC Animated Universe podcast, or the likes of Sons of the Dragon and Immortal Iron Fist podcast. There's a heap of shows there. We've got links in the show notes for that. Please keep writing into us. I love hearing from you, love chatting Moon Knight with everyone. So feedback at itkmoonnight.com. We've got a website, itkmoonnight.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal, and Podchaser, and incidentally Podchaser and Apple Podcasts. If you can leave a review, that would be really nice of you. It will just help us get out there a bit more, help build the Loony army, and hopefully, we'll be strong and we get to storm some land and claim that land as our own. Anyway, before I start rambling on and going on for another half hour for no reason at all, I'm going to cut it there. So, as always, Loonies, take care. Thank you for listening. And as always, may KHONSHU watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.